Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Referencing. This video is a general introduction to referencing, why it's important, why we do it, what information is needed, and ending with some good referencing practices. To begin, why do we reference? We reference for several reasons, but the most important one is to avoid plagiarism. By referencing, we give credit to authors and creators for their work. We'll go more into detail about this soon. We also reference in order to provide evidence to support our arguments and ideas. Referencing also shows that you've done your research and allows for your instructor to trace your references in order to be checked for accuracy and reliability. And lastly, referencing allows you to further your own research. If you find a book or an article that you find particularly helpful for your assignment, you can look at the references the author has cited and seek out those resources yourself. So what is plagiarism? Here is a definition of plagiarism that is taken from the University of Oxford. You can see that a link is provided so you know where this definition comes from. According to the University of Oxford, plagiarism is presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own, with or without their consent, by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement. All published and unpublished material, whether in manuscript, printed, or electronic form, is covered under this definition. Plagiarism may be intentional or reckless, or unintentional. That last sentence is really important. Plagiarism may be intentional or reckless, or unintentional. That means you can accidentally plagiarize. This is why it's important to learn how to properly reference so you can minimize the chances of doing that. With that in mind, what can you do to avoid plagiarizing? You can make sure that you record your sources accurately. That means including all of the information that is required per your school's referencing guide. You can include the proper citations and references when acknowledging the work of others. Make sure your reader knows when you are using someone else's work. You can be careful while paraphrasing. When paraphrasing, you should be putting information into your own words. If directly quoting from a source, use quotations or speech marks. It should be obvious that you are word for word quoting from somewhere else. A good rule of thumb, when in doubt, cite it. If you're not sure, cite it anyways. It's better to reference too much than potentially plagiarize by not doing it enough. So far, I have been using the terms citations and references. They might seem interchangeable, but they are actually different things. To put it simply, citations lead to references. Citations are inputted within the body of your work. They provide information so the reader can find that source in the reference list. References expand on citations. They provide even more information so the reader can then access or retrieve that resource. You include an in-text citation when paraphrasing or directly quoting someone else's work within the body of your writing. Citations include a little bit of information, and they can often change with the structure of your sentence. Let's look at what I mean by that. In your writing, if you include the author's name in this sentence, you only need to include the publication year in this citation. If you do not include the author's name in the sentence, then you will put it in the citation with the publication year. Looking at the two examples I have here, you can see in this first one, I have included the author's name in the sentence. As Jill Lepore, 2018, page 238 writes, "In the 1840s and 1850s, the United States faced a constitutional crisis." Jill Lepore is the author, so the citation only includes the publication date. In the second example, during this time period, the United States faced a constitutional crisis. Lepore, 2018, page 238. The author is not mentioned in the sentence, so I have included the surname in the citation. In both of these examples, I have also included the page number in which I found that quote. Most referencing styles require you to include the page number when direct quoting. After including a citation in your writing, You will then include the corresponding reference in the reference list. You can see an example here, and you can see I have expanded on that citation example from the previous slide. In that reference, I have included the author and the date of publication, as well as the title and the name of the publisher. Reference lists include all of the references used in your work. There should only be one reference per resource, even if that resource is cited several times in your writing. Your reference list should include all of the relevant information that is laid out in your school's referencing guide. Reference lists are usually alphabetized by the author's surname. So where can you find the information necessary to complete a reference? There are several ways of gathering this information depending on the type of resource you are using. For instance, on the left side, I have an example of a detailed record for a journal article found through a database. It includes all of the information I need, such as the title, Doing Away with Study Skills, the author, Ursula Wingate, the journal it is published in, Teaching in Higher Education, the date of publication, October 2006, the volume and issue number, as well as the pages it is published on. It also includes the DOI, which I will talk about in a little bit. If you are using a print book, you can look at the copyright page, which is usually on the back side of the title page. It will include a lot of the information you need, such as the title, the author, the publisher, and the publisher location. Let's look at what components make up a reference. No matter the referencing style, a reference is at a minimum made up of 4 components. The author, so who created the resource, the date, when the resource was published, the title, what is the resource called, and the publisher, who published the resource. There are 2 examples here at the bottom, and they are color-coded so that you can see how these different components fit together in different referencing styles. You'll notice that in the first example, the author is listed by surname and first initial, but in the second example, the first names are spelled out. In the first example, the publication date is listed right after the author, but in the second example, it comes towards the end. There is a difference in the way that the title is listed as well. In the first example, it's not capitalized the entire way through, but it is in the second example. And finally, the first example requires the publisher, but the second example requires the publisher and the publisher location. In addition to those 4 main components, you may also need to include page numbers. Depending on your school's referencing style, this could include the specific pages used in a direct quote or paraphrase, or it can include the pages that it can be found on in a publication, such as an article published in a journal. You may also need the URL or DOI. These can be required for electronic resources or web pages. The URL is a website address, so www.google.com would be Google's URL. Oftentimes, you can use a shortened URL for stylistic reasons, but it's best to check your guide or talk to your instructor. DOIs are digital object identifiers. They are like serial numbers for resources found in databases and are often required when using electronic resources. You may also need to list the date of access. So these 2 examples here show you what it looks like to include things like page numbers, DOIs, URLs, and access dates. Remember to always check your school's referencing guide to find out exactly what information you will need to include. While knowing how to reference is really important, it's also good to get into some good habits while doing it. That way, you can hopefully keep the stress of referencing to a minimum. First, you can use the temporary folder function on Library Search. Other databases should have variations of this tool as well. This tool allows you to briefly save results from a search. You can also use it to email sources to yourself so you can quickly return to an ebook or an article and not have to search for it again. You can also consider printing out articles or chapters, so again, you can quickly return to that resource. Both of these can be particularly helpful if you lose any referencing information. Another tip, print out your referencing guide. That way you can highlight useful areas, use post-it notes so you can return to certain sections. Get to know your referencing guide so that you can become more comfortable with it. By printing it out, you don't have to go searching online for it. It's right there for you to use. And also, cite as you go. Create your reference list at the beginning of your assignment. As you write and include citations in your writing, take a moment to complete the reference and place it in the reference list. This way, when you finish your writing, you don't have a load of referencing left to do. You've already done it as you went. All that's left is to proofread and edit that reference list, and you're good to go. If you do lose your referencing information, don't panic. The internet can be really helpful. Try Googling the resource and see what comes up. You can even turn to Amazon, which can also be helpful. On the left, you can see this book cover, and in the top right corner is the Look Inside function. Amazon includes this on a lot of books. You can click it, and it will open the book as if it were right in front of you. Then you can flip to the title or copyright page and get the information you need. Amazon also includes a section called Product Details. It includes things such as page count, the publisher, and the publication date. If you are using a referencing tool, such as EndNote, just be aware that oftentimes schools at UH use their own referencing guide, which can differ from what the referencing tool creates. So if you do use one, double check it against your school's referencing guide so you don't miss any potential differences. And of course, always double check your citations and your references before submitting your assignment. To end, I want to show you how to access your school's referencing guide through the Library SkillUP module. You will see a list of pages within that unit. You can start on this first page, the introduction, and work your way through the unit page by page if you'd like. Or you can scroll directly to the pages that you think will be helpful. To find your school's referencing guide, scroll until you see a page titled Style Guidelines for your school or subject area. And lastly, remember to join the Library SkillUP module so you can access more help and support. The link is listed here. Thank you for watching.